Mr. President, while we've been here discussing health care, the clock has been ticking on our national debt. Just in the first 2 months of this fiscal year, we've accumulated $296 billion in debt. We took in revenues of $268 billion, and we spent $565 billion. We spent double what we took in, just in the first 2 months of the fiscal year. Mr. President, I know you're new to this chamber, as am I. I've only been here about 90 days, but I've been here long enough to know that this system is broken. It doesn't work. This body, nor the body across the Capitol, have an ability to make ends meet. We continue to spend money we do not have. We spend the money of our children and our grandchildren. Right now, we have a $12 trillion debt. A $12 trillion debt. It took us 167 years in this country just to amass a $1 trillion debt in 1982. And now we're at $12 trillion. Every family in this country is now responsible for $100,000 of debt. And where are we getting this money? We're borrowing it from countries like China. And it's hurting our standing in the world. Central banks that hold American currency are shedding those dollars because they no longer feel that our country is a good investment. Mr. President, I worry about our children and our grandchildren. I have 3 sons, as you know, Max, Taylor, and Chase. They're 6, 4, and 2. And we have a baby on the way in March. And I am very worried that my children will not be able to experience the American dream like you and I have. To be able to be in the United States Senate, to be able to achieve all of our goals, whether in public service or in private. I don't believe that America is going to be the same place for them, that it's going to hold the same opportunities, because I believe this debt is going to strangle us. And if this body and the body across the Capitol doesn't figure out that we need to start making ends meet and stop spending the future generations' dollars, this country will not be the leader of the world. It will not have the promise that we have all enjoyed. So I rise today, Mr. President, to speak about Senate Joint Resolution 22, which I filed yesterday, a constitutional amendment that requires the United States Congress to balance its budget and also gives to the President of the United States a line-item veto so that he, like most of the governors in this country, can strike out inappropriate budget items, these earmarks that you hear about. Senator McCain spoke this weekend about $2.5 million to the University of Nebraska to study operations and medical procedures in space. We can't afford that program under any circumstance, and we certainly can't afford programs like that when we are $12 trillion in debt. Now, these dollar numbers are so big, they are hard to comprehend. What does $1 trillion mean? What does $1 billion mean? In Washington, we throw these amounts around, and we don't even comprehend them. And I know the American people at home, it's hard to get your mind around how much money this is. And I've said this on the floor before, and I'm going to keep saying it so people understand that every dollar we spend is a choice. $1 million of dollars laid edge to edge on the ground would cover 2 football fields. $1 billion laid edge to edge on the ground would cover the city of Key West, Florida, 3.4 square miles. And $1 trillion would cover the state of Rhode Island twice. If you stacked them on the ground going up into the sky, it would be 600 miles of $1 bills. Every dollar is a choice, and these numbers are out of control. Just this past Saturday, Mr. President, we voted on a spending bill that had a 12% increase and more than a $40 billion more than last year. With this kind of money, what good you could do, or better yet, you could give it back to the American people and they could decide what good they could do with those dollars for their families. $100 billion, we could give every Floridian a $5,000 tax cut. $200 billion, we could pay the salary of every teacher in America for a year. $300 billion, we could pay first-year tuition at a university of their choice for every kid who's in K through 12 in this country, every child. And with $400 billion, We could build high-speed rail around this country for 10,000 miles. We could connect Key West to Anchorage and back. Every dollar, Mr. President, is a choice. And we are spending money out of control. So like those who have come before me, I'm going to sound the alarm. I'm going to sound the alarm because we still haven't done anything about this problem. Now, there are good measures out there. Senator Gregg from New Hampshire has a measure, along with Senator Conrad, to put together a commission. I support that. Senator Sessions has a measure to bring caps back, because up until about 2002, we actually were making some headway against the budget. Then those caps expired and spending went out of control. I support all those efforts. I support any effort to bring spending in control, because this body doesn't have any leadership on spending. We just look at what we spend. We don't look at the revenues that are coming in the door. Mr. President, you know I served as a chief of staff to a governor in Florida. And when the budget started to go bad in 2007, I was on the phone monthly, weekly, with the person who determined our receipts, because I knew in Florida we could only spend as much money as we had. This institution doesn't work that way. No one even checks to see what kind of money we're bringing in. We just spend. I want to talk to you, Mr. President, and to the American people about an article that was in the Wall Street Journal today. And I want to be clear, this is not a Democrat problem or a Republican problem. This is a problem of this institution. The article is titled, "The Audacity of Debt." I want to quote one paragraph, and I ask unanimous consent that this be placed in the record.
Without objection, it's so ordered.
Democrats ridiculed Mr. Bush as the most fiscally irresponsible president in history, but then they saw him and raised. They took an $800 billion deficit and made it $1.4 trillion in 2009, and perhaps that high again in 2010. In 10 months, they have approved more than $1 trillion in spending that has saved union public jobs, but has done little to assist private job creation. Still to come is this multi-trillion-dollar health care bill and another $100 billion to $200 billion in jobs bills. We can't afford the programs we have, let alone the programs we want. So I filed this joint resolution to have a balanced budget, and I filed this joint resolution to give the president the line item veto like governors do. And I know I'm tilting at windmills, Mr. President, because I know that there are very few people in this chamber or the chamber down the hall that have the courage to do this, because they're part of this process. They go along and get along. But I'm fresh enough, Mr. President, as you are, to still remember how things work in the real world. And we've got to change things, because our children are not going to have this great country. I'm so afraid, Mr. President, that one of my kids is going to come to me when they're 18 or 22 and say, "Dad, I'm going to go to another country to make my living in my life. I'm going to go to Ireland or Chile or India because I've got a better opportunity there to succeed. I can't pay 60% taxes, Dad. I can't assume what will then be a $23 or $30 billion debt. And we're not even talking about all the entitlements we haven't paid for. We're not talking about all the money that we've raided out of Medicare and Social Security in order to pay for current expenses. Some people say that those obligations are more than $60 trillion, $60 trillion, numbers that we can't even comprehend. So I filed this resolution. I'm going to send a letter to every governor in this country asking them to adopt it in advance of the Congress taking it up. Constitutional amendment, as you know, Mr. President, requires 2/3 of both chambers and 3/4 of the states. Well, they can act first. They can send letters and resolutions from their legislators to this legislative body and say, get your act under control. Because it affects them too. This new health care bill that we have is going to send an unfunded mandate to the states in increasing Medicaid from 100% of poverty to 133%. They're going to have to pay that bill. It's going to cost Florida in 10 years almost $1 billion. And right now in Florida, the number one expenditure in our budget is Medicaid. And because we balance our budget, that means we take money away from teachers and education. That means we take money away from law enforcement. It's out of control. It is out of control. So I'm here to say that the siren is sounding. The ship is going to hit the iceberg. And we can't make just incremental change because then we'll just hit the side of the iceberg. We've got to make substantial change. And the people in this body have to have the courage to do it. We can't just go along and get along like we've been before. We cannot be tone deaf to this. The American people, Mr. President, are onto us. They're onto us. They understand that we're spending money that we don't have. I will not stand by and let this great country fall into decline without at least arguing and pushing as strenuously as I can for a solution. And I'm willing to work with men and women of goodwill on both sides of the aisle to solve this problem. I'm new here. I might not have all the answers. I probably don't. But I will surely work hard, and I know that this is one solution. And if every state in the country can have a balanced budget amendment and 43 states can have a line item veto, why can't this body? So, Mr. President, I've filed this resolution. I look forward to talking about it more. And I hope that this body will take it seriously. I see my friend from Massachusetts is here as well. He also is new to this body, although he spent many years working here. We've got to do things differently. We throw around billions and trillions in this chamber like it's just nickels and dimes in our pockets. And it's not. Every dollar is a choice, and it's a choice to make. And if we don't make the right choice, it'll be a choice that our children and our grandchildren will suffer under. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.